Hey, it's Kat in Toulouse. This is Beyond What's Said, where we explore the hidden dynamics behind communication, confidence, and how we connect with each other.
That's right. And today we are looking at hedonic adaptation. So often we have goals and we work really hard to get to them. And then we achieve them and then we set new goals. But along the way, we kind of forget to pause, slow down, and savor the fruits of our success.
That's right.
So we'll be exploring that today.
That's right. So don't forget to download our episode and like and subscribe if you haven't done so. Let's get right into it.
Yep.
Let's get right into it.
Right into it.
Right into it. So let me ask you a question.
Sure.
You know, we've competed in different competitions or set big goals for ourselves. Have you ever paused to think about what happens when you actually get that carrot?
No, actually, not really. I feel like usually my mind is a mixture of happy and blank. And I can think of, in the handful of things I've competed in, whether it's weightlifting or jujitsu. Yeah, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, that was exhausting. And we do it all over again. And so it's always that sense of happiness, relief, but also my mind is kind of blank and let's just reset and get started on the next one.
I guess for me, it's a little bit different. For me, when I just sang a song or did a show, and of course people are applauding and it feels great. I get the adrenaline rush of happiness and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
instead of going blank, I immediately criticize. I play back all the things that I didn't do well.
Okay.
So it's like, I should have sang this note better, or I was a little bit off here, or I missed this part. And that happens with my weightlifting comps as well. It's like, I should have dropped faster. If I didn't hesitate that 0.1 second, maybe I would have this and that.
Yeah.
And so I think it's happiness immediately into criticism.
Yeah, I think for me, the criticism happens shortly after. It's not immediate. I think for me, it's more of a exhaustion, sort of complete depletion and exhaustion, followed by eventually a reflection that does tend on the negative side, as in but I didn't quite get to this micro objective within my larger objective. So for example, in my last jiu-jitsu competition, I had one opponent. It's masters jiu-jitsu for you. You're just fighting.
If you've never won any awards, you should go for masters category.
Yes.
Then you will have a much higher chance of winning.
But I remember, and I'm still very, very early in my jiu-jitsu journey, but I enjoy competing. Anything I do athletically on an amateur basis, obviously, it's all fun and I love competing. But I remember walking away from that victory thinking oh yeah, but I didn't get the submission. So it's it's weird. Just enjoy the fact that you won or you got your performance out of the way and people applaud it. We've spoken about the inner critic before. And I think this is kind of an interesting version of that we're describing.
It's an interesting version of the inner critic as well as the self-talk. We talk about that a lot. I think it does come down to that, what kind of self-talk are you telling yourself? What kind of narrative are you telling yourself all the time? I think for you, perhaps you have a more healthy relationship with achievements and all that stuff. Perhaps your parents never really had that expectations of you. But for me, I wouldn't say that my parents had crazy amount of expectation of it, but I do think that culturally we do tend to have that. Think about how my mom is with myself as well as our kids. My kids, they started playing piano, and my mom's a piano teacher.
Yeah,
and so they would be very excited to show my mom hey, look, Nana, I can do this. And then she's like, your finger positioning is wrong. And also your rhythm is off. And I'm just like, Mom, literally they haven't even taken one lesson. They just want to show you. And she's like, I know, I'm just saying, And so I think the default setting is criticism before anything rather than celebration.
Yeah.
So perhaps culturally there is that kind of baggage that causes us to immediately go, look for everything that went wrong.
Yeah. Well, no, and I mean, obviously teaching in East Asia, teaching international schools, I meet all sorts of different types of parents, but there is an archetype of a parent that I can tell them how great their child is doing based on very different metrics. approaches to essay writing, ways in which they crafted a project or a presentation. But for them, the metrics boil down to a number that's somewhere between 0 and 100, or 1 and 7 in the IB, or 1 and 5 in the AP. And basically, it's like, if it doesn't look like that in their sense, then it definitely doesn't match the level of, achievement that
Well,
is
it's
expected.
it's funny because, like, we were on the bus yesterday
Mm,
and I overheard a conversation. It was like a lady's phone rings and she
mm,
picks it up. And, it's her kid who basically said, "Hey, mom, I have good news and bad news for you. The
mm,
good news is," I didn't really hear the good news part, but the bad news is that I scored really low on my exam.
mm. Yeah.
And I guess, like, the mom was a lot more fixated on the bad news part because she
Yeah.
immediately was like, "Oh, you scored this much. How did your friends do?"
Yeah.
And
Oh,
then
no.
and then obviously I couldn't hear what the kid said on the other side, but supposedly he had said something like, "Oh, yeah, everyone did really well. Are you
Mm,
going to punish me?"
okay.
And then
Wow.
she was just like, "Oh, well, we'll see when we get home." I only know that part because she retold that story to her friend who was sitting next to her.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and so it's like to me, it wasn't shocking. To me,
Mm,
that was the norm. That was kind of
mm,
how my friends were
yeah,
with their relationship with their parents. So we're kind of trained to always look for what can be improved because that was always drilled in us.
yeah,
It's like, "Oh, great, you scored 90%. Where's the other 10%?"
yeah.
You know?
Well, there's a couple of things here. So first, I think, yeah, no matter what, we always are chasing after different goals.
Mm,
And that is just a part of being a human being. We are driven by this kind of, magic neurochemical sauce we call dopamine, right? It propels us, it fuels us. We're chasing after things constantly.
mm,
And I think that is universal. But there are different ways in which we attach certain values to certain achievements,
yeah.
and or at least we craft varying relationships to those achievements and to that sense of motivation and what propels us.
Mhm.
And I think even once our happiness levels reset because we accomplished the thing, right, well, what's going to propel you for the next goal? Is it going to be that fear of getting knocked off the ranking, knocked down a peg? Is it the fear of parental retribution or whatever? Or is it going to be something different, some love of the process, right? For me, as much as, you say I have like a seemingly healthier relationship with that. No, I think that I still need to love the process more than the end product. I think that I still catch myself being overly self-critical for things. It's like, look at the mountain of positives, but who cares? Look at the tiny little anthill of negatives.
Well, no, I think, like, for you, yours is more of, like, the anxiety of being knocked off the ranks,
I think so, yeah.
because of your background in a lot of competitive sports,
Mm.
and in very competitive environments, being in UCLA, being in, like, one of the top programs, in your
Yeah,
doctorate, and so on and so
that's true.
forth.
That's true. Yeah.
So I do think that it is worth taking the time to talk about what happens when you actually get there,
Yeah.
when you actually grab that
Yeah.
carrot, do you what is your initial response? Is it immediately criticizing everything that didn't go wrong?
Yeah.
Because if that is the case, that is what your brain registers.
Yeah.
That is the feedback loop that you keep feeding yourself,
Yeah.
is that you're never good enough.
Yeah, I think it sort of primes the brain, it primes the body for anticipating negativity rather than
Well, it
positivity, and that
does.
could really affect your game as you enter into the next race of achieving whatever goal you're working
Well, it's
towards.
not even the next race. It's that this thing that I worked really hard towards just was never good enough.
Yeah,
And so therefore I need to do more in order to fill that void, to feel like
yeah,
I am enough. But
yeah,
the problem is you will never feel good enough because that is the feedback loop that you keep
yeah,
feeding yourself, because it's always work hard, when the end goal comes, criticize, in mass in reflection,
yeah,
and then but you only focus on the negative,
yeah,
and then you move the goalpost, and then you do it all over again to
yeah,
try to see if you can do better next time. But
yeah,
then when you do get better next time, you learn from your mistakes or failures, if you
mm,
will. You get to the next goalpost, you do the same thing to yourself again. I'm going to look at all the things that didn't go well.
Yeah.
And then that cycle just keeps going and
Yeah.
going. You keep moving the goalposts up, up, up.
Well, and say that, okay, the goalpost keeps getting shifted, but say like the magnitude or the size of the thing that you're doing gets even bigger. So, for example, you start out presenting at your workplace, and then you deliver, really compelling, awesome lectures to larger audiences, and you're working towards sort of a large TED Talk type of culminating thing. But at every step, you're constantly internalizing the sort of the negative criticisms, the taking stock of all of the flaws, and the kind of the all the micro warts and cracks and micro warts, is that even a thing? But like all the sort of the cracks in your edifice, you keep putting them front and center in your mind's eye as you move on to bigger and bigger goals.
And then that's going to look like when someone goes, "Hey, you did so good in your presentation and your talk." Oh, no, 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 no. I could have done this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
So that's where that shows. You may not think that, oh, I'm very critical of myself. It shows when you go, oh, no, 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 no. Why did I miss this
Mm,
word? Or, I didn't hit that note and all that stuff. It
yeah.
shows in these kind of responses.
I think it's almost like sometimes it's almost as if humility and helplessness are kind of one and the same. We want to be humble. We want to be like, no, 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 that was not me. It was everyone but me. It was the support network that I benefited from. It was these people, or it was a fluke, or it was a
Mm.
one-off or a two-off thing, right? And I think that, sometimes in the name of reflection, in the name of humble, we actually create a sense of helplessness where nothing we do is really us. It's just circumstantial or fluke like. And obviously, if things didn't go your way, then it would just be like, well,
It's just confirmation that you're really
exactly.
terrible.
Yeah.
And so it's like, even if there's nothing that you can really pick on,
Mm,
even if you looked really hard and it's just like, oh, well, there's really not much that I can pick on,
yeah.
you still somehow won't let yourself win or
Yeah.
feel that sense of satisfaction.
Yes. I think, you know, there is something about human beings, not to get sort of weird and pessimist, but I think like human beings, we constantly want to imagine our own demise and downfall. I think there are
Hmm.
deeper evolutionary reasons for this.
Well, isn't it like the negativity bias?
Well, yeah, negativity bias, like our brain defaults to possible bad outcomes.
Mm.
And there's a lot of, great literature out there, from not just psychology in general, but evolutionary theory. Like, there are reasons why we want to lean on our imminent collapse, our imminent demise,
Mm.
because we came from a world where that was a thing.
Yeah.
From microbes to saber-toothed tigers and other creatures now residing somewhere in the permafrost.
Oh my
Hopefully,
God.
the, well, global warming might bring that about. No, I'm kidding.
Oh.
But basically, like, yeah, I think that it makes perfect sense. So it's one of these things where we have to almost actively resist or fight against our own kind of neurobiology.
Well, I think like, resist sure is one thing, but I feel like that's just going to put more pressure on ourselves to
Mm,
then it's another thing to kind of beat ourselves up to be like,
yeah,
oh, I did not receive my win as well
yeah,
as I should. So I think like perhaps instead of resisting, it's more just like it's a practice
yeah,
of letting go. It's
sure,
a practice of turning the reflection, not focusing immediately on the negative first. In fact, focusing on the positive.
yeah,
I don't think people naturally reach for, hey, these are the things that went well.
yeah,
It's facilitated. I feel like nowadays, more and
yeah,
more educators, they will facilitate students be like, what went well?
yeah,
Before they go, what can we improve
yeah,
on? But that definitely wasn't a thing for us growing,
no,
becoming adults and things like that.
yeah,
And so for us to really focus on, hey, let's take a moment to celebrate,
yeah,
to feel that elation and that kind of adrenaline
yeah.
rush of happiness, but not hang there too long.
Yeah, that's that. I was gonna say like just
Just like 20 years later, that time back in 19
well,
96.
we went to see Matilda, right?
Yeah.
And Miss Trunchbull, who's
Oh
like
yeah.
constantly living in the glory of the
Of the
whatever
when she
hammer
was the
throw
yeah,
champion. Yeah, it's you don't want to be
you
that.
don't want to be that.
Yeah,
But you should enjoy it.
Yeah.
You should enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Sure. Yeah.
And you should acknowledge the hard work that you
Yeah.
put in for this harvest.
Yeah.
And, reflect on that. What did I do well? And create that positive feedback loop.
Yeah. No,
So you
absolutely.
register success and the things that you did well in your brain. So the next time, we
Mm,
don't just learn from our failures.
yeah.
We also learn from our successes as well. So we know to do this next time.
And I think, if you want to access those experiences of mastery, those flow like experiences where you're really in it to win it and you do win it, I think it requires kind of good metacognition. It requires good reflection on the process. But I think it's like reflecting on what works.
Mm.
Like
Mm.
when you're practicing a skill and you're executing it in the gym and then in competition and then, things go well, it's like, okay, well, what aspect of that worked really well? Like, what was the thing that actually got you through the finish line, or what was the move that got you the win? Or in the case of performing, which I'm not familiar with, but like, what was the preparation routine that you
Yeah.
took that got you to hit those notes,
Yeah, that's
or
right.
got you to nail the take in like one or maybe barely a few cuts or whatever? So yeah, I think leading with the positive, but that's when I talked about neurobiology earlier. It's almost like it's hard to do that because we default to the negative, we default to these things, but kind of hacking that and
Mm.
leading with the positive, I think can be a really interesting approach that
Yeah.
gets you registering the success, but not just like I registered the experience. No, I registered the methods and approaches
Yeah.
and ways that got me to where I wanted to
No,
go.
that's an important distinction. It's not that you just register the feeling, that
Mm,
fuzzy feeling of winning. Then you will literally live in that kind of glory days,
yeah,
but without knowing what actually worked.
exactly. Yeah,
So, register what you want to register is what are the metrics or what are the methods that actually
yeah,
worked for you to achieve this
yeah,
kind of success this time.
yeah,
Or even if there were flaws in your performance or
yeah,
whatever outcome, there are still moments where it was good. So,
yeah,
what were the things that worked? Register that. Then, and only then, do you start looking at, hey, what are some things
yeah,
that I can improve on? And then also the ratio of good to bad as well.
yeah,
He's like, some people could, and I do that sometimes too. It's like, all right, I know I need to register good stuff. So, I guess I did this good. All right, now let me look at all the
yeah,
10 bad things
yeah.
that I did wrong.
But even if your performance falls flat, it's like you can still start with positives and look at like, okay, here are things that I did that were like very noteworthy and they reflect something that I did in my process that I worked hard, but ultimately did not execute in the moment. I think that that's a critical reframe that, um, even in the conditions of losing and getting your butt kicked or failing, like I took risks. I tried what I honed.
And it's not going to feel natural,
No.
especially if
Yeah.
you haven't been doing that, you're not used to that. It's definitely not going to feel natural. You might,
Yeah.
in the first several, handful of times,
Yeah.
10, 20 times, it's going to feel fake. Like you're
Yeah.
you're just trying to look for the good
Yeah.
things, right? But over time, and that's why it's called a practice. You have to
Mm.
rewire your reframe your brain
Yeah.
so that you start registering good things faster because you're
Yeah.
so used to looking at the bad things
Yeah.
first. And so you're retraining your brain to look for the positives.
Yeah.
So it is a process. So don't feel weird
Yeah.
or like I'm just perpetually not good. I'm digging
W
for gold in like
yeah.
somewhere where you can't find gold.
No, it's like I said, it's that counterintuitive, like, this doesn't feel natural or
Mm,
normal. Like, I found there's a great reel by a really successful author, Daniel Pink.
mm,
He basically said, instead of, "What if it goes wrong? What if it goes right?" And that was like a really like it seems so basic, but I was like, yeah, that's a really tough one to like wrap your head around
mm,
because our brains will default to that catastrophic
yep.
mindset, like, oh my God, it's just gonna be terrible. And what if the worst absolute thing happens? It's like, no, what if the best thing actually happens?
Yeah. Or like, the thing that already happened. What if it wasn't as bad as you thought?
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
you keep thinking that it was the most catastrophic thing, and the audience or the people around you are giving you feedback like, "No, no, no, it's actually really good," and you're
Yeah.
you're shutting them out
Yeah.
because you refuse to believe that because you don't believe that inherently.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that the hedonic adaptation theory that we started with, for me, when I look at it, it's like, okay, yeah, happiness resets, and then we set these new goals and we work towards bigger and harder things. But your happiness, it gets a bit distorted, or that sense of contentment never really comes if the consummation of your reward or the achievement of your goal is saturated with negative, critical self talk.
Yeah.
And
So then you don't
yeah,
really give yourself the chance to adapt because
yeah.
then it's more like the hedonic treadmill, really. 'Cause
Well, yeah, the hedonic treadmill. That's
yeah,
yeah,
so like, you just keep going and going and
yeah,
going, but you don't actually ever achieve or get to where you want to go.
yeah, exactly. It's like the carrot is dangling in front of you as you're on the treadmill, and then maybe you take a nibble of the carrot, and then you're like, all right, and then you just throw it. Well, no, you're on a treadmill, so it wouldn't make sense to throw the carrot.
You can still throw things on a treadmill.
Exactly, but it's like basically you don't really get to consume the carrot ever. You're just kind
No,
of
it's
constantly nibbling on
but that's
it.
why, like, I asked you that question in the very beginning. It's like,
Mm,
have you ever thought about what happens when you actually grab that carrot?
yeah,
It's just like, wow, I actually got the carrot now. Do you then take a moment to enjoy it? And
mm,
like we said, focus on what went well, like what actually propelled me to grab
yeah,
that carrot?
yeah.
Or do I go, you know what? I'm gonna put it on a string and push it down even farther.
Okay,
And
yeah,
then I'm going
yeah,
to keep going and going and going kind
yeah.
of thing. So it's essentially the question then becomes, do you ever let yourself win?
Mm,
Do you ever let yourself celebrate these moments of win?
mm.
Or is it that you just see it as, well, I could have done better?
Yeah, the image of an eternal carrot that just gets flung further and further, I think, is an accurate one. And ultimately, as a closing segment or remark here, it is important to enjoy the fruits of your labor, enjoy your success, and then reflect. And there's no harm in doing that. It's that you're not being like, oh, like I'm just going to lean on positive things only, and I'm going to be all complacent, and just I'm not going to try to do harder and riskier things down the road. I think it's just
And it's
building
also
up.
not selfish to take a moment
Yeah,
to absorb all that,
yeah,
to like take all that in.
yeah, absolutely.
There should be no shame or guilt in doing so. As long as, like we talked about earlier, we are then reflective on what concretely went well.
Yeah,
And so we can learn from that. Then we can talk about the what are the things that we can work on
yeah,
to improve. So growth essentially is both. Like it's
yes,
not just learning from our failures, it's
yeah,
also learning from our successes. And so
yeah.
that's the important part is that you have to register success in order to grow as well.
No, yeah, that's a really great note to end on. And when you do finally get your reward, don't be making faces like, or just
Do you
completely.
make those faces?
No, my daughter, my oldest daughter, really enjoys making these kinds of faces with me, like just kind of these dumb face. But for me, it's like the image of a guy like just basking, like a kind of a Gaston looking, like Beauty and the Beast, like kind of like just basking in the
Yeah,
glory of
don't
his.
be like a Gaston who basks is like, being very snobby or being very like
Yeah,
snarky about it, but also don't be the complete opposite. Like you think of any Asian person, oh no, 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 no. Oh
yeah,
male,
yeah,
male, male, male.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no,
Like,
me, like yeah,
find that balance of like, it's funny because I had to actively practice this. I had to learn to just receive compliments because I used to do this, oh male,
mm.
male, male, no, 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 it wasn't that good. And I remember one of my mentors just literally stopped me one time and just went, "Just say thank you."
Yeah.
And I went, "Okay,
Take the W.
take the W." And
Mm,
that was something that I had to actively practice. And so, yeah, it's going to be unnatural, but it's so worth it because it's part of that
yeah.
growth.
No, for sure. So, don't be a Gaston, don't default to Gaston, but do take ownership of your
That's
victories
right.
and savor them. Savor that carrot.
Savor that carrot. Share that carrot with other people after you've taken a bite, but make sure you're not
It's a
sick.
funny image. Like everyone's just kind of
A carrot?
anyways.
All right. That's all we have for today. So
Alrighty.
we'll see you in the next one.